Kaya's mom. When Titans appear in Wall Rose, one of the villages nearby is abandoned while Kaya and her mother are left behind, due to her mother having bad legs. They hide in a small cabin when eventually a Titan standing at only a couple meters tall manages to squeeze through the door in search of his next meal. To Kaya's horror, the Titan starts devouring her mother, beginning with her legs. Sasha Blouse eventually arrives in the town to alert its citizens and finds the two women in the house they were left in. Sasha unsuccessfully attempts to cut the Titan's nape with an axe, and then notices the child in the room. Sasha apologizes to the mother as she decides to abandon her, and successfully takes her child to safety. When Sasha found both of them, the mother seemed to have either died from blood loss or had been in a state of shock that helped put her out of her misery. This is one of the more gut-wrenching deaths in the series because the unimaginable pain Kaya's mother must have been in as the smaller Titan slowly chewed off her flesh little by little, and is made even worse by the fact that Kaya had to witness the whole thing. She just sat there, refusing to leave her mother behind as she was slowly eaten by the mindless Titan, and certainly had to sit through her mother's screams of agony before finally going silent. Carla Yeager. Carla Yeager was Aaron's mom and the second wife of Dr. Grisha Yeager. Back in her younger days, Carla worked as a waitress at a small bar in Shiganshina. One of her regular customers was Keith Shaddis, who would later become the commander of the Survey Corps. One day, Keith brought along a strange man who was found wandering outside the walls. That man was Grisha. Not long after, Carla fell sick with a disease that was spreading throughout Shiganshina. Keith rushed her to Grisha, who had started working as a doctor. Grisha managed to save her, and in that moment of relief, Carla hugged him while crying tears of joy. Eventually, the two fell in love, got married, and had a son named Aaron. Carla was always super supportive of her family, especially Aaron. When he expressed his desire to join the Survey Corps, basically the most dangerous military branch, Carla was completely against it. She pleaded with him to stay safe within the walls, while Grisha, on the other hand, stayed pretty neutral about it. Then came the day that changed everything, the fall of Wall Maria. When the Colossal Titan kicked through the gate of Shiganshina, debris from their house crushed Carla's legs, trapping her under the rubble. Aaron and Mikasa rushed to help her and desperately tried to lift the beams off her, but they just weren't strong enough. Seeing the approaching Titans, she begged them to leave and save themselves. Hannes, a family friend and soldier, arrived. Aaron begged him to save Carla, and Hannes actually prepared to fight the Titan. But the moment he got a clear look at it, a towering, terrifying, grinning monstrosity, his courage immediately crumbled. He froze, and in the most heartbreaking moment, Carla screamed for him to just take the kids and run. Hannes obeyed her wishes and dragged Aaron and Mikasa away as they cried and protested. Carla's real last words, which Aaron didn't hear, were her whispering, "Don't go," before covering her mouth so they wouldn't hear her fear. And here's where things got horrific. As Aaron watched helplessly, the smiling Titan grabbed Carla and crushed her in its hand, causing her insides to shoot out of her mouth. It was fast, it was grotesque, and worst of all, she was still alive when it did it. The Titan then casually lifted her to its mouth and bit down, devouring her in front of her screaming son. She was literally squeezed until her guts burst out of her mouth, while still conscious. Imagine the pressure on her ribcage, her organs rupturing, and the burning pain of being physically mangled in a Titan's grip, all while watching her kids get dragged away. And the fact that she told Aaron to leave her to save themselves, despite knowing she was about to face one of the most agonizing ends imaginable, makes her death hit on a whole different level. Marco Bodt. Marco Bodt was one of the most level-headed and kind-hearted cadets of the 104th Cadet Corps. He was an idealist who always put the group before himself, while encouraging others to do their best. In fact, he was one of the few people who believed in Jean's potential as a leader, as he constantly pushed him to step up and lead with confidence. Because of his natural charisma and judgment of character, Marco aimed to join the military police, hoping to serve humanity in a meaningful way. Then came the Battle of Trost. Despite being absolutely horrified at seeing his friends and comrades die one after another, Marco held it together and kept everyone around him calm. His leadership helped the cadets regain control of their headquarters and resupply by helping Armin devise a plan to clear out the attacking Titans. Even after he was placed on standby, he was still busy helping keep morale high among the surviving cadets, especially when they are ordered to return to Trost later and he was put in charge of a squad to support the front lines. During the operation, he accidentally overheard a conversation that he wasn't supposed to hear. He caught Reiner and Bertolt, his fellow cadets, casually discussing the plan to destroy Wall Rose, basically admitting that they were the Titans responsible for everything. Marco thought it was some kind of sick joke and brushed it off, until Reiner suddenly grabbed him and slammed him into a building. In that horrifying moment, he realized they were serious. He had just discovered the identity of the Colossal and Armor Titans, and they could not let him live. Reiner ordered Annie to remove Marco's ODM gear, which meant Marco was now defenseless against Titans. Annie hesitated, but she did it anyways. Marco completely panicked and begged them to talk it out. Tears were streaming down his face as he realized his own friends were about to leave him to die. And they did. Now unarmed, he watched in horror as the nearby Titan approached him. He screamed for help, but his former friends could only watch in guilt and silence. The Titan grabbed him and bit into the right side of his body, sinking its teeth deep into his midsection. The Titan clamped down and bit him in half, causing his spine, ribs, and intestines to be ripped in two. Marco was still alive for those first few agonizing moments. You can even see his face frozen in pure horror as his upper body is left dangling from the Titan's mouth, his lower half already devoured. And what makes it so much worse is that he was betrayed by his friends. His final moments weren't just filled with physical agony, but pure emotional torment as well, knowing that the people he trusted the most had thrown him away like trash. And that's what makes his death one of the most horrifically painful in the entire series. Miche Zacharius. Miche Zacharius was a section commander in the Scouts, and basically humanity's second strongest soldier after Levi. He also had an insanely good sense of smell, so good that he could detect Titans from far away. He played a big role during the mission to capture the female Titan, working alongside Levi to carve Annie out of her Titan body. That plan, of course, didn't work out thanks to her selective hardening ability. Later, when the female Titan let out a terrifying scream to summon nearby Titans, he was the first to pick up on it by smell, warning Erwin of the imminent threat before it could arrive. But it was during the mission to investigate the 104th Cadet Corps that Miche's true nightmare began. While out on patrol, he suddenly smelled something really bad: Titans inside Wall Rose. Without wasting any time, he sent a soldier to warn Erwin and ordered his squad to retreat while he alone took on 9 Titans to buy them time. He wiped out 5 of them with pure skill, proving why he was one of humanity's best. But just when it looked like he might pull off the impossible, he ran into something different: the Beast Titan. Unlike any Titan he had ever seen, this one was abnormally tall, covered in fur, and clearly intelligent. Before he could react, the Beast Titan casually grabbed his horse and chucked it at him. The impact sent him flying straight into the mouth of a waiting Titan, where his legs were instantly crushed. And this is where Miche's death gets uniquely horrifying. The Beast Titan suddenly spoke to him. Instead of just letting him die, it asked him questions. He, who had spent his entire career fighting dumb, mindless monsters, was now being interrogated by one. He was too shocked to even respond, completely paralyzed in fear until the Beast Titan got bored. So it took Miche's ODM gear and left him there, crippled and defenseless. Then, in the cruelest possible move, the Beast Titan released the other Titans. Miche tried to fight back, screaming through the pain, but the Titans pounced on him. They ripped him apart piece by piece and devoured him slowly as he screamed in pure agony. Unlike other characters who died in one quick chop, Miche's death was prolonged. The Titans tore him apart limb by limb, making him feel every second of it. And that's why Miche's death ranks as one of the most physically excruciating in Attack on Titan. He went from being one of humanity's strongest soldiers to nothing more than a plaything for Titans while suffering pure, raw, unfiltered agony. Faye Yeager. Faye Yeager was just an innocent kid who got caught up in the cruelty of the world she was born into. As the younger sister of Grisha, she grew up in the Liberia internment zone, where Eldians were treated like second-class citizens under Marleyan rule. One day, Grisha and Faye got caught up in a moment of pure childhood wonder. A blimp flew over the city, and they couldn't resist following it, as if chasing the dream of something beyond their harsh reality. But leaving the internment zone without a permit was a serious crime for Eldians, and unfortunately, 2 Marleyan officers caught them. The soldiers gave them 2 options: forced labor or a beating. Grisha chose a beating to keep their parents out of trouble. He even took the blame, claiming he forced Faye to follow him. One of the officers beat him up, while the other took Faye away, supposedly to bring her home. But when Grisha finally stumbled back home after his punishment, Faye was nowhere to be found. The next day, her body was discovered by the river, lifeless and mutilated. The same Marleyan officers came to their house, spinning some half-hearted lie about how they had left her at the border and she must have gotten herself killed. Their terrified father immediately bowed his head and swore to teach Grisha not to step out of line. But Grisha knew. He knew these men were lying. And he was right. 7 years later, Grisha learned the horrifying truth. Faye hadn't just been left at the border. She had been tortured for sport. The officer who took her away had fed her to 3 vicious dogs. They ripped her apart while other Marleyan officers stood by, watching and enjoying the spectacle like it was some kind of sick entertainment. She was slowly torn apart, piece by piece, while still conscious. Imagine the agony of sharp teeth sinking into your flesh, ripping you apart while you're too weak to fight back. And the most heartbreaking part is, it wasn't a mindless titan doing it. It was humans. People who could have stopped, but didn't. Because to them, she wasn't a little girl. She was just an Eldian, someone they saw as less than human. Faye's death proved something terrifying. The true monsters of this world weren't always titans. Hannes. Hannes was more than just a captain in the garrison. He was family to Eren and Mikasa. He was the guy who laughed too much, drank a little too often, and always tried to keep things light, even when the world was falling apart. But when it mattered the most, he showed up. He was the one who saved Eren and Mikasa from the Smiling Titan when they were kids, even if it meant running away instead of fighting, and he never forgave himself for that. Over the next 5 years, Hannes worked his way up the ranks, but he never really lost that laid-back big brother energy. When he saw Eren and Mikasa and Armin again and Trost, he was so proud of them. He even apologized for not saving Carla, but Eren reassured him that it wasn't his fault. Fast forward to the battle to rescue Eren from Reiner and Berholt, and Hannes found himself face to face with that same Titan that had taken Carla all those years ago. Before the Smiling Titan could grab Eren, who had just been rescued by Mikasa, Hannes stepped in to save him. This was his shot at redemption. No running away this time. He was going to finish what he couldn't do back then. Except it wasn't enough. Despite fighting with everything he had, Hannes got caught. The Titan clamped down, biting him in half, snapping his spine, and ripping away his lower half in one brutal motion. His spine was shattered, meaning he would have been in excruciating pain right before the end. And if he was still even slightly aware as the Titan finished its meal, that's a level of suffering that most people can't even imagine. His body hung there for a moment, lifeless, before the Titan devoured what was left. Eren and Mikasa could do nothing but watch in horror. The same scene from their childhood played out all over again, except this time, it wasn't Carla, it was Hannes. Ilse Langnar. Ilse Langnar was built different. While most people in Attack on Titan spend their final moments screaming or running, she spent hers writing. She was a member of the Survey Corps and part of the 34th Expedition Beyond the Walls. Unfortunately, her entire squad got wiped out, leaving her as the sole survivor. With her horse gone and her odium gear broken, her only option is to run. She sprinted through the wilderness despite knowing she probably wouldn't make it back. But instead of panicking, she pulled out a notebook and started documenting everything. If she wasn't going to survive, at least her notes would. Maybe they'll help humanity in the long run. While running, she ran into a Titan, but this one didn't immediately try to eat her. Instead, it talked. It called her a subject of Ymir, and even bowed while calling her Lady Ymir. Ilse was understandably shook, but she wasn't about to waste the opportunity. She started questioning the Titan about who they are and where they're from, writing down every detail in her journal. However, the Titan did not respond to her questions. She impatiently yelled at it and vented her frustration on the human-eating monsters who had made their lives miserable. The Titan seemingly became frustrated and started ripping the skin off of its own face, which horrified Ilse and prompted her to run. But before she could flee, the Titan lunged, caught her, and bit down on her head. With her skull trapped between its teeth, Ilse kept writing until the very last second. Her final words were scribbled in the notebook before the Titan crushed her skull like a grape and bit her head clean off. It didn't even eat her properly. Instead, it stuffed her corpse inside a tree like some kind of keepsake. Later, Hange Zoe found her notebook, which turned out to be a huge breakthrough in understanding the Titans. Ramzi. Ramzi was a young boy who had a rough life from the start. Living in a refugee camp in Marley, he did whatever he had to do to help his family survive, including stealing. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a means to an end. Unfortunately, stealing got him into trouble more than once. One day, after being caught by some merchants, he got dragged into an alley and beaten senseless. Just when things looked bleak, Aaron showed up and saved him, beating the merchants into the ground instead. Aaron then took Ramzi back to his village, where the boy thanked him, but something unexpected happened. The man who just saved his life suddenly started crying and apologizing over and over. Ramzi, of course, had no idea what was going on. Why was this stranger so heartbroken? Why was he apologizing to him? At the time, it didn't make sense. But in hindsight, Aaron knew exactly what was coming. Sometime later, Ramzi got caught stealing again, and this time, he paid a steep price. His right hand was cut off, but even that didn't break his spirit. He kept stealing to save whatever money he could in hopes of buying his family a real home, something better than a tent in the refugee camp. Then came the rumbling. Ramzi and his best friend Halil were checking on Ramzi's hidden stash of money when the ground shook violently. Moments later, chaos erupted as a group of villagers screamed and fled in terror. When Ramzi looked up, he saw an unstoppable wave of Colossal Titans marching forward like an army of death itself. The two boys fled with the rest of the villagers, and they ran for their lives while clutching their stolen money. As they ran, Ramzi dropped his money, and in a tragic mistake, Halil turned back to grab it. Ramzi tried to stop him, but before he could, a massive chunk of debris came crashing down. Halil didn't stand a chance. His head was crushed instantly. Ramzi wasn't so lucky. A separate piece of debris slammed into him and pinned his leg to the pavement. He was crippled, unable to move, forced to watch his best friend's lifeless body beside him. But the horror didn't stop there. The rumbling titans were getting closer, with their immense heat boiling the air around them and scorching everyone nearby. Through his agony, Ramzi caught an apparition of Ymir standing in the distance, and it was the last thing he saw before getting stomped by a titan's massive foot, crushing his body completely. And like that, Ramzi was gone, flattened along with Halil, reduced to nothing more than a bloody stain on the pavement. Ramzi's death was easily one of the most physically painful in Attack on Titan. First, he was crushed slowly, meaning that he probably felt his body breaking before his brain even registered death. Second, the scorching heat from the approaching titans would have burned his skin, making every second unbearable. And third, he had to watch his best friend die in front of him before suffering one of the worst deaths imaginable. Unlike Khalil's quick death, Ramzi's was slow, agonizing, and filled with pure terror. Hange Zoe. Hange Zoe was the 14th commander of the Survey Corps, who led the regiment through one of its most chaotic eras. Hange was obsessed with Titans, and that curiosity helped humanity understand Titans better, and eventually it led to uncovering the truth about the world beyond the walls. Hange was there for everything, leading the first expedition beyond Wall Maria, taking the curious scouts to witness the sea for the first time, negotiating with foreign nations, and even trying to keep Aaron in check, although they were unsuccessful in doing the latter, when Aaron independently infiltrated Liberio, forcing them to command the Survey Corps and attacking Liberio. Having Zeke as an ally and working with him didn't sit well with Hange and Levi, and things became more complicated with the rise of the Yeagerists, who will do everything to push Aaron's agenda. When Aaron went full genocidal maniac and unleashed the rumbling, Hange knew that there was no sitting on the sidelines. They made the painful decision to oppose him, even if it meant risking everything for the chance to stop his global massacre. That choice led to their final mission. Hange coordinated an alliance between former enemies, the remaining scouts and the Marleyan warriors. After stealing an airship to chase down Aaron, the group made a pit stop at Odiha to prep the flying boat. But Floch, the ever-persistent Yeagerist, somehow followed them and managed to shoot a hole in the fuel tank before Mikasa took him down. Now they needed another hour to fix the airship. The problem is that they didn't have an hour, as the rumbling was already closing in. This means that someone had to buy time. Armin and Reiner were ready to volunteer, but Hange shut them down immediately. Their Titan powers were too valuable, and at this point, there was no room for debate since they would need both the armored and colossal Titans to take down Aaron. Hange volunteered to stay behind and later named Armin the 15th commander of the Survey Corps. Before leaving, they had a heartfelt moment with Levi, who told them to dedicate their heart. And then it was time for one last fight. Hange soared into battle with their ODM gear, doing what they did best, admiring the sight of Titans before taking them down with precision and skill. They used Thunder Spears to take out two, but soon the real fight began. With nothing left but their blades, they kept going, slashing at Titans despite being way too close to their burning hot bodies. The heat radiating from the Titans was insane, Hange's skin immediately started to burn, with their body literally being cooked alive. Every second of movement was agony, but they kept going, enduring this searing pain long enough to make sure the flying boat had time to take off. Only after it was safely in the air did they finally fall, with their body burning to ashes before even hitting the ground. Imagine being burned alive with your own flesh peeling off while you still try to fight, making Hange's death one of the most agonizing, yet the most heroic way to go out.